Welcome to the next episode of the Dragon's Den podcast. Today we have another episode of the Debrief with Shane Murray. Shane only has a couple of years on the job, and while working at his part-time department, he found himself in a situation where he can make an impact. While fighting a fire, he was given reports of a victim, and in a low manpower scenario, he asked the chief officer if he could do a solo search. He searched, and with a little help at the end of the recovery, he rescued the person. He now joins us to tell us his story and see what lessons we can learn from it. Thank you for listening. You ready to roll?
Getting natural. I'm pretty comfy. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Welcome to the next episode of the Dragon's Den podcast. Today we have on another episode of the Debrief. Today I'm Chris Scott, and then today we have on with us, we have firefighter Shane Murray. So I appreciate you coming on, Shane.
No, thank you for having me.
Shane has a couple of years on with Lafayette. He also started with the Broussard Fire Department, which is one of our local surrounding departments, back in November. Just like the last episode of the Debrief, I didn't think that I'd be doing these very much. I figured that, we don't get grabs too often, just like I said on the last one. And that was not the case. Once again, just like with Tucker, it wasn't the case. Almost immediately after, it was crazy because when your grab had happened, when you actually pulled somebody out, I got five texts that were like, "Hey, Broussard got a grab. Broussard got." I was like, "Oh my good, here we go." So the natural progress of how we operate this thing, I start to kind of investigate. Who is it? Do they want to come in and talk? And we eventually connected. You told your story, and I said, "Hey, if you're interested in come and tell your story, then we'll have you on at some point." And then, sure enough, you said, "Yeah, let's get together." So, for the people that have not seen an episode of the Debrief yet, the goal, the main mission of this thing, is to learn from the people that put hands on bodies and remove them. What were their expectations? The good, the bad. Did we do it right? Did we think we do it wrong? All that stuff, so that if somebody else were to make a grab after having listened to you, they might be able to make hopefully better decisions to produce better outcomes. That is beyond that. That is everything for me. So anyway, all that being said, Shane, appreciate you coming on, and the floor is yours, man. Tell us about the situation.
No, and I definitely appreciate you reaching out to begin that. Right. So where do I even begin? We're on our way actually to a centralized fire station here in Broussard. We have three of them for a debrief on the bad weather we were having. So we're on the road. It was myself and an engineer, BJ Frenfrock.
Sure.
So it was just the two of us, on an engine whenever the call came in. So already kind of on the downside. You're not at the station. You don't have your gear set up quite right. You're just in transport.
Sure.
Whenever this call came in for a house fire coming back the way we came. So I'm putting on my gear. We're headed to the call at this moment. Smoke showing. We make it on scene. At no point did we have an indication that there might be somebody inside. It's just a house fire,
Standard house fire.
Standard house
fire. You got
fire.
no reports of victims inside yet? Okay.
Nothing. Nobody had screamed out the window, the casual, everyday training scenario.
Sure.
So being first in engine, I was first attack, on the fire. So whenever you're looking at the building, we had fire on the Alpha Bravo corner, roughly. So the front left.
Sure.
So I pull an attack line. We're starting to get water on fire. At this point, there's a door also right in that section. So it's a kitchen area essentially. So there's a door on the front right there, and then they actually have a front door in the middle of the house.
Okay.
But I had made entrance to that front door, at the fire attack. And whenever I opened that door, I actually said, "Hey, this is the fire department. Is there anybody inside?" Mm-hmm. Nobody answered. So again, I backed off again from search. I'm still on fire attack by myself on a hose line. I had seen some fire licking out from inside the attic, right? And there's another chief on scene who told me to pull out so we can put out some of that fire. I couldn't quite get to it with a smooth bore, right? It was kind of inside, so every time I'd put it out a little bit, couldn't get the base of the fire.
Sure.
So myself and Chief Spell were able to toss a ladder, put a ladder up on the building, climb the ladder, and start putting out fire from the attic. Mm-hmm. At this point, somebody had walked up behind Chief Spell and said, "Hey, there might be somebody inside the house. You know, if he is, he's in a back bedroom somewhere." And I overheard that from the top of the ladder, right? So I turn
So
around.
Chief Spell's down at the bottom,
He's at the bottom. He's
and
footing
you
the ladder.
overheard it.
Yeah, I just
Okay.
overheard, everything going on. So I turn around and I said, "Can I go for a search? Like, would you mind if I go for a search?" And Chief Spell's absolutely about it. Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah,
Go
go get it.
Go figure it out.
Okay, now
right?
now you are manpower limited. I think we need
Yes.
to clarify. It's not like
Yes.
you got 10 other guys to
Right.
go
No.
with you, right?
At this point, as far as I know, I was the only one in full gear, ready at that point. We still had trucks coming in. We had guys, there as chief command and pumping the engine. We had a water supply issue, from what I understand, in Broussard because of the inclement weathers. Things were either the hydrants were down or they were about to be shut down. I'm not 1,000% sure.
Sure.
So we're having a water supply issue. But as far as I was concerned, I had full gear. There's some people coming behind me with full
Right.
gear, right?
Sure, sure.
So once I got the green light to go ahead,
Yeah.
and then I am by myself at this point, which is normally an abnormal thing to happen. We talked about that a little bit. You don't normally do a search by yourself. That's
I don't advocate that. Yeah.
almost never. You shouldn't, but
Sure.
hard,
Situation dictated.
desperate times, desperate
sure.
measures, right? So I go into the door that I had actually made entry in to begin the call, right? And I did a slight right hand search, tripod method, foot on the wall. I was just making my way around the house. And once I got to the living room, which is the next room after the kitchen, right, I could hear him breathing.
Let's pause that. Back up.
Right.
You made a decision because you had told me that you heard you had fire on the left in the kitchen,
Right.
and it wasn't that. It was you definitely had fire, but it wasn't that bad. But you were like, it was an easy decision to go right because hose line.
Yeah.
There's fire over there.
Yeah.
I'm going to go the other way. Right.
Right.
That's what prompted that
Right.
decision. Pretty simple. So you scoot onto the living room, and then you hear
Right. I could actually hear him wheezing, his breaths, right? And at first I'm like, okay, that might be a machine, something in the back. I wasn't 1,000% sure, but at this point, you gotta check that out. And I should back up a little bit. I did drop the hose line on the outside of the house. I am searching, no hose line.
right.
And
yeah,
in
rolling.
all honesty, no tools. We talked about that as
Yeah,
well,
we'll get there.
as
We'll
the
get
first spec. Okay, sure. So I can actually hear him breathing. So I make a beeline for what I can hear, which was down a hallway on the right, and then all the way at the end of the hallway on the left is where I actually ran into his legs, right?
You said something. I want to pause you there real quick. You said something earlier to me when we talked on the phone that you said it was eerily quiet.
It was super quiet. I could kind of hear some crackling on my left side just from things shifting and, maybe the fire, things like that. But other than that, this house was,
Yeah.
and
And so somebody else had mentioned that to me on a separate event when they were also searching. I want to say it was alone. They said the exact same thing. They said it was eerily quiet, and that is not normally what we do because we've got so many guys in there. We've got a hose line spraying, we're clanking bottles, we're hollering, whatever the case may be. But when you're alone, there's a weird quietness. So,
yeah.
and I think that allowed you to be able to hear him down the hallway. So you beeline kind of towards the breathing.
I was able to make my way directly towards him, correct? And then I came in contact with him. So and my thought process here, we get on scene, there's no victim. I'm not even thinking about a victim at this point, Then this person comes up behind Chief Spell, and it's like, okay, there might be somebody in there, how likely? Maybe. We'll see. And then I hear breathing. So it's like, oh, there's probably somebody in here, to actually making contact with this person. And it's okay, I have a victim. There's somebody in this house who is still breathing. It's not a a body like we'll find at times or something like that. This is a victim, right? So I get chest to chest with him. I do my little arm sweep, finding other victims. And
attempting to find
other victims. You're correct.
You almost made that really dramatic there.
Right,
You found
right.
4 more.
Yeah, no. Attempting to find other victims. Just regular stuff you normally do every single time.
Sure.
You find a mannequin in the training tower or something like that.
Search around. Where you find one, you find more.
Right. So and then at this point I say, I'm with the fire department. I'm going to get you out. Okay. And he responds. He said, okay.
Yeah. Okay, that's pretty good. We like that.
Yeah, so at this point, I'm all the way thrown off. You're doing these training situations, and it's a mannequin. They never talk to you. They're flimsy. They're in there. everything
saying
about
yeah
this is
was
just,
him saying okay was a shell shock.
absolutely.
Visibility throughout. You saw you a little bit of fire, just kind of back you up. If you saw the fire on the kitchen and the left side, but once you made it down the hallway, was it zeroed out?
It was zeroed out. So it
Okay.
was already dark in the house, but on top of that, I couldn't see anything through the
Right.
smoke. I mean, I'm face to face with this man. I
You still
cannot
can't
see
see him.
anything. So as far as, it's to the floor with smoke. Was it very hot? No, it wasn't super hot where I was at that point, but it was
But you couldn't
definitely,
see. Got it.
definitely could not see.
He
So
presented, so you found him in the doorway, is that
in
correct?
the doorway,
And
yes, sir.
presenting feet first.
Feet first.
Okay,
Yes,
got
sir.
it. Continue on. You good.
So at this point, I make a little broadcast over the radio, attack one, I've got a victim,
All units, attack one, I got a victim.
so that they know that people are coming outside, medical equipment's ready, things like that. We're prepared for a victim. I'd crossed his legs at this point, pulled his knees up into my hip, and then I just tripoded as fast as I could out, right? Problem with that, again, he was awake. So while I was taking him down the hallway, he was grabbing onto door frames and things like that. He's not very aware of what's happening, right? He's nervous. He's already a little slippery, so it's hard to keep hold of him. I'd already been fighting fire for a second, so I'm tired.
And let me ask you, you're not pulling him around corners. It's not like corners that are hanging you up. You can really feel like you're moving him pretty good, and then it's like a stop.
Yeah.
Ugh.
Yeah. And
Okay. He's definitely, he's not getting hung up on things.
No, he's grabbing stuff,
Okay,
right?
got it.
So I get him all the way about halfway back to the living room. I'm making my line for my point of, my point of entry. So I'm going all the way back to that point, right? We can talk about that a little later.
Sure.
But I'm going back to where I know there's an exit, right? So I get about halfway through the living room whenever he slips out my arms completely. He's a heavier dude. He'd already been grabbing onto stuff, pretty tired. So
And he doesn't have anything, he doesn't have clothes,
he
so
doesn't have any
it's
clothes,
not like you got
right.
like some friction to kind of,
No,
you got nothing.
There's
Go ahead.
nothing, right? So at this point, I'm trying to get a regrip. I'm crossing his legs back over, and I ask him to try to like hold tight, keep his body. But at this point, I think he was unconscious. He's gotten to that point. We're already to that point. But at this point, actually, another firefighter had came in, right? Firefighter Cole Champagne had made entrance into the house where I had came in and said, hey Murray, where are you at? He's trying to find me to find the victim so we can both get him out. Once I heard that, it was kind of like a saving grace. I'm tired.
Yeah, because you didn't mention that. You had said, I don't know if you were going to mention, but I'm going to put you on blast. You were like, hey, I'm gassed out
No,
at this point.
I'm tired.
You had pulled the line.
Right.
You had got up. You were fighting fire. Now we've got to go search. We're searching solo. We're making the drag solo. Like you're starting to hit.
Yeah.
We all have physical
yeah.
limits. You're starting to hit it. You had told me.
That adrenaline shakes. My legs are starting to kind of shake a little bit. I'm tired.
Adrenaline is only going to get you so far, right?
And I was gonna get this man out, but it's a blessing that I had somebody come in to help.
It was a relief. Yeah.
So I'd already had his legs up in my arm, so I rotated him so that Cole could do a little wrist grab, something similar to that, so we can get him out head first. Even if we drop him at the doorway, at least he's
out.
He's out, right?
Sure.
So I rotate him around. Cole's able to grab his top half. I'm able to grab his bottom half, and we get him all the way outside, 20 feet-ish away from the house. A couple of the firefighters that are now on scene, we have a lot more people than whenever I went in, obviously,
Yeah.
So one of the firefighters went and grabbed medical equipment. I had Chief Spell, again, with me, and I end up rendering aid, right? So I'm pulling my gear off, and we give him some oxygen. We're doing some things to try to stimulate him, get him awake. And then he's
Wakes
awake.
back up.
Yeah, he's awake. I mean, this is a grab, right?
Yeah,
he's awake. He was a little confused. He couldn't tell me really the city he was in, but he was talking to me. He was answering me pretty quickly. His eyes were open. He asked if he could go to a hospital. Like he knew, he was pretty aware of everything going on, right? He had some burns on his throat, a little bit on his chest and back, just as it goes. But other than that, man, he was
he's back living.
He was up, right? And then we got him on a stretcher and got him to the hospital.
So I wanted to tell Cole's story just real quick, because although he didn't have very much, he only had maybe a 6 or 8 foot. He'd come in just to kind of assist you with that last little bit. One of the things that he said was that when he had come in, he had found head first. I was like, wait, hold on. If Murray is dragging him feet first, how does his head appear? And he didn't know. Cole said, even when I talked to him, he goes, I don't know. So I got to talk to Murray. So I asked you, and you were like, yeah, I spun him around because your thought was that he would be able to grab his hands or something, or do something. But obviously Cole didn't know that. But one of the things that Cole said was he tried to grab him underneath his arms multiple times. We didn't have clothes on. And every time he tried to get underneath his arms to get the lift up, he would slip out and he would slip out. And Cole was starting to get frustrated. He was starting to get angry. And I said, well, how'd you end up grabbing him? And he said, well, I grabbed his wrist and we just pulled wrist out. So I would have loved to have Cole on to kind of get his thought process around that, but it went back to we didn't teach, like, that wasn't to get underneath the arms and pick them up into the atmosphere was not something that we taught, but instinctively he did that. So, but we did teach the wrist drag. So it's one of those things that if you run into this kind of situation where try to get back to, I don't know how to, once again, I wish he was here to kind of explain his thought process, but go to what we train on for the most part. Try to get back to what we train on, because that's what ended up working. The thing that we didn't teach, that's what he went for, and it didn't work. It didn't work out well. But it was perfect timing, like you said. He was starting to gas out a little bit. Cole comes in and is able to scoop him up. So, all that being said, the good, the bad, the ugly. Right. So it's really the learning lessons, and it could be pretty short. Right. What do you feel you did, was pretty good? You felt like, man, that went pretty solid. If you could have done it again, what would you have done differently to make a better outcome? Obviously, the outcome is exactly what we wanted. We have an alive human victim. That's exactly what we want. But your thoughts in retrospect?
I mean, number one is tools. Having the tools on me, that's number one overall. Because you have fixes whenever you have tools, right? You got ways to do things, right?
Sure.
Yeah, solving problems. And even just as little bit as like webbing, right? In my Lafayette gear, I do have a set of webbing, and I can do a little, California love knot, do some handcuffs to keep those hands tight, which would have even made it easier for Cole to actually go up underneath the arms.
Mm-hmm.
But
so you had so you didn't have that. You get no Halligan in case you needed to. Maybe you need to isolate and take a window,
which we did talk about. Sure. we talk about VEIS all the time, and that's how we normally train search is by going through a window, coming back out a window, right? I did talk about I wish I would have pushed him further into the room, found a window, and got him out that way, right? Which would have been the safest option.
Yeah, but breaking it gets difficult with no tool. Did you have a thermal?
I did not see.
Right.
So our trucks and most trucks actually have the thermal in the back seat, right, on a charge report.
There's nobody back there.
And there's nobody back there.
Truck.
It's me in the front seat, right? And again, I'm not looking for a victim. Going forward, search is number one priority, and that's in my head. It's going to be there from now on, making sure that there's nobody, right?
Yeah. We try, but once again, don't beat yourself up on that, because you're so manpower limited that we still, and I said this on Tucker's podcast, we still have to put water on the fire. That is still our top priority. We have to make it better for us and better for the victims immediately. That's still at the top. But when you can get that search done, then that is supposed to be our next priority. Is going to be to try to get people in the building. It just so happened that somebody came up and said, hey, we think somebody might be in there. And then it's kind of a game changer, because it goes from possible victim to probable victim. So you end up, you talk about the risk reward thing, and you're going to take a little bit more risk sending in you solo to go look, because somebody, went and said, hey, maybe look. So don't beat yourself up about search being a priority. And that's not even, that's not really in your wheelhouse at this point. But you went to the chief. Can I go? We can go. He made the right call. So, so that was anything else on the would have done differently as far as kind of on the bad side?
I feel pretty comfy with the. I mean, he was
Yeah.
awake, which made the leg grab a little
Yeah.
less comfortable, but I don't think I would have made a different decision. That's
You
just
were-
such an easy.
I'm glad that you had the radio. Tucker went in. That was one of the things he said. Man, I wish I would have heard. How are you wearing the radio? Did you have it in the old good old strap? Or?
Yeah, I do
yeah.
have it in the
Was
strap, and I unclip it and go in. Yeah, it's here. It's right
right
here.
there. You knew.
So
real quick.
yeah, going back to tools. I mean that's
a
the
tool.
biggest tool that you could possibly have, especially with the Manpower Limited. You know,
That's
I'm
absolutely
in
huge.
contact with everybody on the outside. They're in contact with me. I mean, that's major whenever it comes to things like
That's
that,
huge.
right?
Yes. The good. So obviously we just talked about the tools and having them. What do you like that what were good decisions that you said, yeah, I think we've made pretty good decisions there. Go ahead.
I mean, getting the approval to go for a search is major to me. You know, he could have said no, we're gonna hold off for another crew, or no, there's probably nobody in there. You know, like definitely having a search mentality at that point was good to me, made me happy as a person.
Yeah,
you know?
I complimented you
You're
because
right.
I said what you could have done was ignored it. You could have it been like, well, that's somebody else's problem, but you pushed the chief to kind of, I don't want to say force his hand, but you put it in his ballpark. You put it in his. It said, hey, can I go? And now he's got to make that decision, yes or no. But you said it versus what you could have not said it. So yeah, I agree. Go ahead.
I think as a department we did good
Sure,
with that.
yeah, no
you know,
doubt.
just as far as that went. I think we did. Once we did find the victim, once we did have a victim, you know, we were all good about having medical equipment ready and preparing all of that, having it where it needs to be, where the guy needs to be, and where he needs to go, right? So I think all the steps were followed procedurally on finding a victim, getting the victim out, getting medical assistance, and then getting him where he needs to go to, you know, a burn center and things like that.
Quickly,
So
sure.
that's probably one of my more favorite things that we did, you know, as a whole. I meant the grab went like it does,
Went well,
you know.
yeah.
That's
Excellent. Do you have any final thoughts before we wrap it?
not that I can think of at the moment.
Yeah, perfectly good. So to conclude, we appreciate you coming on, Shane. Talk about your experience. We hope that it helps somebody that's going through something that might end up going through something similar later on, to kind of get their mindset kind of in the right direction. Hey, we heard Shane say this and he was successful on this, to have them just basically be better prepared for when their moment comes. Because I firmly believe that it is coming. Once again, I said it on the last podcast with Tucker. It's only a matter of time. And for you to be so young to catch one, I've had on Tucker, who only had a couple of years on. I've had on Miles Bro, who only had a couple of years on. They're young guys. Kojo, I told you Kojo's story. You know, he didn't want to come on, but you know, you could go a very long time without making a grab, very long time, possibly your whole career. And it's good that you got it so early, because it helps other people not be complacent and say, like, I'm not going to get one. So-and-so hadn't had one. He's been on for X amount of years. It literally doesn't matter. It could be day one. And we're starting to see a lot of these guys pop up that don't have a lot of time. And it's not only, oh, we were searching with 4 guys, 5 guys. It's like the last 2 guys I had on did a solo search. It was only them. And it was essentially pretty close to, in Tucker's case, it was a solo grab. He got the victim all the way to the door. For you, it was almost a solo grab until Cole hit that last little bit. Those are unusual situations, and you guys are young in the job. And I think it's important that people hear that, to go, this shift at work, when I go in, this could be the time. Am I ready for that? Have I prepared enough to be ready for that grab? And clearly you were, because you got him out. So once again, appreciate your time, appreciate your experience, and that's going to wrap the next episode of the Debrief for the Dragons Den podcast. So thank you for coming on, Murray.
Thank you.